Thank you for checking out Real Talk Personal Finance. Shit's about to get real. Cashflow King with you today. And today in episode 48, we have financial profiles with Cube Crusher in your 20s. Before we get into today's show, a couple quick shout outs and announcements. First of all, want to give a very special shout out to our two newest subscribers. And when I say subscribers, I'm talking about premium subscribers to the podcast, those that are going to be getting a shout out right here. They're going to be getting the quarterly e-newsletter. They're getting Cashflow King's favorites documents that are sent out periodically. They are getting a 25% discount on the merch as opposed to just the normal 10% discount, and so on as we continue to build out the platform. Our first subscriber since the last show is Robert T. So Robert T., thank you very much for subscribing to the show. And not only did Robert subscribe, when you become a premium subscriber, which is currently still only $3 a month, there's an option if you'd like to give a little bit extra. And the default setting is no thanks, and then you can choose to give a little bit extra. I believe it's in increments of $1 to start off with. And Robert was so kind to give the show a little bit extra. So thank you very much, Robert T., for becoming our newest premium subscriber to the Real Talk Personal Finance podcast. Next, we have Trevor E. Trevor E. is our next newest premium subscriber to the Real Talk Personal Finance podcast. So thank you very much to Trevor E. for subscribing to the show. We sent out emails to each of you with last quarter's newsletter. We now have a running list of 2 different documents for Cashflow King's favorites. And also, I forgot to mention this in part of the intro, you guys should be listening to the show now on your new premium RSS feed. So when you become a premium subscriber to the show and you choose your icon that you'd like to support the show. So for example, Robert T. chose a little red heart and Trevor E. chose a little multicolored unicorn. When you choose those, you will have a pop-up that says, would you like to begin listening with this feed? And you click yes or okay, and it will show your little icon. That is the feed that you should be using to listen to the shows going forward, because not only will you get to listen to all the normal episodes, but that will also enable you to have access to and listen to the premium-only episodes. You have to listen to it with your new customized feed. So that's obviously the other big thing that you get with becoming a premium subscriber is you get access to the archive of all of the premium only episodes. So again, thank you Robert T. and thank you Trevor E. for becoming our newest premium subscribers to the Real Talk Personal Finance podcast. Again, you both should have received emails by now with some documents. If you haven't received those, please let us know. Email the show, realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com, and we will happily resend them to you. Next, I wanted to give a very special shout out to the folks in Lakewood, New Jersey in the building. You guys are kicking ass and taking names, coming up the charts under the cities here in the U.S. that are listening to the show. You are right on the tail of Ashburn, Virginia. So thanks again to those out in Lakewood, New Jersey. We still got some awesome listenership going on in some other areas like Lowell, Massachusetts, and Indianapolis, Indiana, and so on. Also, actually here, South Amboy, New Jersey is just a couple notches down from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So thanks to everybody for checking out the show. We hope you guys enjoy it. Again, as always, please feel free to leave a 5-star rating and review. Feel free to check out our premium podcast subscription at only $3 a month. It really helps out the show, and it means the world to us, so we really, really do appreciate your consideration. Okay, without further ado, let's bring onto the show our newest premium sound superstar, Cube Crusher.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. Just a Sunday afternoon, and wanting to put out some content for everybody. So we had talked in the last episode, and this will continue. If you want to email in your personal financial profile, you do not have to use your real name. You can make up a name. We don't really want you to make up numbers, but if you want to, you certainly can. But we want to launch a part of the show where we're going to do, I don't know how long the series is going to be, but different age groups of folks in different financial situations. And as promised, Cube Crusher will give you his very best non-advice advice. And we're going to go through some of that from a very high level today. We've contemplated how we want to do this and how detailed we want to get. We had started a spreadsheet for one of them with a bunch of different line items. And given the fact that this is a podcast, that might be kind of difficult to follow. We're open to feedback. But today, I think what we're going to do is go through 3 different, if we have time, financial profiles. We're going to sort of set the stage with who this person or these people are, not like literally who they are, but like what is their situation, right? Where are they in their lives? What's their financial picture look like? And then we're going to have a conversation, and Cube Crusher is going to start with his thoughts on what should they be thinking about, what should they be considering doing, what are some of the things that would be directionally correct. And we might not get into too much specifics on the numbers, or we may, but the plan right now is to keep it fairly high level so that it's easy to follow along with in a podcast format. You got anything to add, Cube, before we get started? I got the 3 profiles pulled up here. I was going to start with number 1, but just want to make sure you're good first.
No, I'm good. I don't have anything to add just yet.
All right. And by the way, we did not receive any dick pics. Thank you very much. So do not send those to the show. And we also didn't receive any, we didn't receive any pictures at all.
Send us dog pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, dog pictures are cool. We like dogs. Yeah, we both have dogs. So feel free to send some dog pictures to the show. That's always nice. realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com. And, send us a picture of your dog. All right, we are going to start with financial profile number 1. And again, this will make more sense if you listen to the last show why we're doing this. But here's what we're going to do. Financial profile number 1, we have somebody who is in their early 20s. So this is an individual. This person is single, does not yet have any children. They're earning about $60,000 a year from their W-2 job. They have a 401k plan with a match. Their employer will match them up to 6%, so 100% match on the first 6% that they contribute. They have the ability to make contributions to that 401k plan on a pre-tax basis and or a Roth basis. In other words, Roth 401k is available at this employer. This person does not have any savings yet to speak of in their early 20s. They have about $50,000 of student loan debt. They have about $40,000 in an auto loan at 5.5%. And finally, they have about $10,000 in credit card debt at a whopping 20%. So this is the individual that we're talking about here in financial profile number 1. From a strategy standpoint, a critical thinking standpoint, Cube, what is your non-advice advice? Actually, before you answer that, we have to say this, especially on episodes like this, right? Neither one of us, in all seriousness, give any advice on the show. We give no legal, tax, financial, or any other advice on the show. We do this strictly for entertainment and informational purposes. So take everything we say with a grain of salt. We're going to have some fun here, but this is not advice to any one individual. Okay, with that said, Cube, what are your thoughts?
Well, first, I would tell the person congratulations. $60K a year income is pretty good in most places here in America when you're in your early 20s and to be single with no kids. I guess a couple areas of concern that the person would probably have, or that I would have, speaking with the person, would be, first off, the $10,000 in credit card loans that is at 20%. And then you add on a $40K auto loan at 5.5%. Those are 2 things that aren't great of this profile, but I think that's not totally out of the norm for what somebody may see in their early 20s. And then in addition, the no savings or no emergency fund, I think that that's something that can give them a little bit of, I guess, financial comfort if they were to have some type of emergency fund. So those are kind of the first areas that I would focus on personally. You know, they have the 401k with a 6% match. My line of thinking would be no matter what I am putting in, I don't necessarily know if we said it's a 6% match on the first 6%.
That's right.
Or what it is, but I would put in that 6% to get the match. Now, whether or not that's pre or post tax, you know, I would say at this stage it doesn't really matter. You know, obviously pre-tax you could save a little bit on the bottom line, whereas the post-tax you wouldn't. And I think that would have to be factored in with some other expenses and what exactly their cash flow situation was looking like. But at this stage, I would just basically say start saving one way or the other. You know, most people I think would say, okay, you're young, your income's pretty low right now, you don't have any kids, so a Roth or post-tax makes sense because you're going to have a longer time period for that money to grow and have more money to that comes out tax-free whenever you're retired. I think that would be the conventional way of thinking about it, but as well, I wouldn't be opposed to the person doing pre-tax if they wanted, you know, whatever that would be. I can't do the math in my head. Let's see, 6% would be
$3,600 a year.
$3,600, yeah, that they're putting in a year. So if you're at a 20% tax rate on that, what is that? Saving you about $700, $750.
Yeah, 720. Here, let me interject here a little bit. So, and you mentioned this, but I want to make a point of this because this actually comes up a fair amount in real practice, and that is somebody that is, for lack of a better phrase, paycheck to paycheck, that is worried about being able to get the match or not, right? So we've done episodes, probably a couple of them now, on pre-tax versus Roth and strategically what people should be thinking about, and everything that we've said in those episodes I think still holds true. But when you get in a situation where it's the difference between, you know, can you put in enough to get the full match or not? Obviously, if you're putting in, as we've described in other episodes, Roth contributions, it's going to take a bigger bite out of your net pay. In other words, your take-home pay will go down more with a Roth contribution because you're not getting any tax break today, right? We know that. But in a situation, and I'm not trying to steal Cube's thunder here, but I couldn't help myself to jump in here. In a situation where you have other debts that are, especially in this case, the credit card, which are at high interest rates, you're probably going to want to, and I think he alluded to this, you're going to want to free up some cash flow there to be able to attack and handle those things. And so, you know, Cube mentioned it doesn't really matter, and I would agree. I don't really think it matters, but I would also probably, all else being equal, let's say this person had no debt, right? And they're at 60K 2023 single, they're at a 22% marginal federal rate. And they could very quickly get down into the 12s. And I think at that point, you could say Roth all day. And I think we might have mentioned that in some other episodes. But given their particular situation here, where there are some debts, specifically the one credit card at 20+%, I would say you're probably going to want to obviously get the match. I 100% agree with that. You're going to want to get the match, but you're also going to want to free up probably every other dollar that you can to do some of the other things like Cube mentioned, which are build an emergency fund. We didn't really get much into this yet, but tackling the credit card debt, things like that. So in order to put in the full match and have the least impact to your take-home pay, given the choice between pre-tax versus Roth, I think in this particular situation, and Cube, you can step in here if you disagree with this, but I would have a bias for this particular person, at least initially, for these reasons, towards pre-tax contributions, because you're capturing the full match and you're still having, you know, enough cash flow to tackle the other financial challenges given their situation. Agree, disagree, thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, at this stage, every dollar does kind of count, and you want to make sure that you are using it as optimal as you can while giving yourself some flexibility. And I think that getting that match and starting that savings process and the savings mentality at this stage is kind of the most important point for this person to start doing. And I would personally probably do the pre-tax. I mean, whatever, $700 doesn't sound like a lot. Whatever it is, it's $60 a month. But that's $60 a month. That as long as you're using it well and not buying fucking cases of beer with it, that can be used for good.
Okay, good. So on the same page there. All right. So this person, so far, it sounds like the non-advice is get the match, get the 6% match. You're putting that in pre-tax no matter what. That's step one.
Yeah, that's what I would say
Okay.
as far as the employment situation goes. Step two is hopefully you're not underwater in your auto loan. I would highly consider selling the vehicle, even if you could make a little bit of money and getting something that is less expensive. I mean, I know that having reliable transportation is important for most people. They do commute to their jobs, and you don't want a car that's consistently breaking down. But that isn't the next area that I would look at. Would be, how can I get this auto loan payment to come down? Because to me, it's just not a very wise financial move to be giving yourself financial hardship for. I mean, a 40K loan is probably a fairly luxury automobile. I mean, you can get perfectly acceptable vehicles for half that price.
Okay. So step one, get the match. Consider doing it pre-tax. Step two, consider getting a still reliable vehicle at a lower price point so that you're not strapping yourself with that high of an auto loan, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, let's just make up numbers. Let's say the person netted out, they got down to a 20K or 15K car loan. They got a used one, a nice used car, and they came out, $5,000 ahead, let's say. So, with the 10K in credit card debt and no savings, personally, I would probably, off the top of my head, just thinking half and half. $2,500 goes straight to that credit card, and then $2,500 into to start you up an emergency fund. That would be without knowing what their monthly expenses are, but I feel like that would be a good start to cover the emergency fund part of it and start getting that credit card paid down.
Okay. Very good.
And then as far as the other thing on there is the student loan debt, I would just ride it out and make the minimum payments until you can, clear up that credit card debt. Hopefully, within however many months of working, you're able to pay extra towards it instead of just the minimum payment, and then eventually you can have that credit card knocked out and then move on to whatever your new auto loan may be, or to your student loan. If you wanted to pay off debt, if you see your savings increasing greatly, that's the part that I would start looking into a Roth IRA, which we've talked about, and I know you've had several shows about. The one good thing about that too is that if you get in a pinch with a Roth IRA, you can always take your contributions back out of it. So that would be a positive of having that Roth IRA at that point. But that would kind of be my initial steps. Would be, okay, let's get this match. Let's get the match while having as much free cash flow as possible. Let's see if we can do anything with this auto loan and find something more reliable and maybe lower our payment and get a little extra cash. If we do have any extra cash from something like that, let's try to build up savings and pay down this high interest rate credit card at the same time. And then once that credit card is fully paid off and your emergency fund is in a comfortable position, then start looking towards a Roth IRA or something of that nature.
Would you ride out the credit card at 20%, or would you look at other options?
Yeah, that is a tough one. You could probably do a balance transfer and get 0% for a little while. I know there's always offers. Obviously, it depends somewhat on your credit score. That is something you could look into, and that would basically free up maximum cash. I guess it just kind of depends on whatever you're comfortable with. I've personally never done that before. I'm guessing it's not too hard. I know that there is usually a fee that's associated with a balance transfer on a credit card, but getting that 0% and getting it knocked down, that could give you that could kind of extend your runway as far as getting it paid off. I guess it would depend on how quickly this person, thought they could get that paid off, whether or not it would really make it worth their time. If they're having pretty good monthly cash flow numbers and they're able to knock out, 1,500 here, 2,000 there every month, then it's only going to take them 5 or 6 months to completely pay that off.
Okay, so if you can attack it 6 months or less, or maybe even as much as a year or less, you're not all that worried about it, depending on whether or not there's a balance transfer fee. If it's going to take significantly longer than that, then your bias is towards looking at some sort of balance transfer to get it at 0%, or at least a much lower rate than 20.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this situation, $10K in credit card debt's more than I would want to have personally, but in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't be that. It's not that huge of a number, I don't think, as sad as that is to say. And there is a break-even point, I'm sure, as far as, however many months it'll be to get it at 0%. It just depends on your preference, and it may end up that you're sitting at home one day and you get something in the mail, or you get an ad on your Twitter feed that says, here, click here for 0% for 12 months, and you just decide to do it. The only way that it would be really bad is if you thought you could pay it off sooner and then shit happened and it was sitting there for longer than expected. But
okay,
there are options, I guess, and that's good for people to know, is that, yeah, you can probably move it to 0% for a little while, but if you're having monthly cash flow, that's always an option too.
All right, and presumably you're not putting new charges on the card while you're paying it down.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay. Or at least not new charges that are accumulating, because that defeats the purpose. But, okay. What about anything that this person should be thinking about? They're single with no kids, so are they still looking at life insurance? Are they looking at your favorite insurance like disability? Are they doing anything with an HSA, assuming they have a high deductible plan and they're eligible for an HSA? Are you thinking at all about that stuff, or is that all, I don't want to say down the road, but does that take a back seat to the steps you've outlined so far?
To me, the HSA would be another thing through work. I think, most of the time your high deductible plan is going to be the lowest cost plan each month that you pay into, and then you can kind of, put up however much you want into that HSA. Personally, I would try to get as close to the max as I could on that. Some places do have some type of employer match. If they do, I would at least do whatever it takes to get that. But I would definitely go with a high deductible plan. Usually people that are in their early 20s are fairly healthy. I know when I didn't go to the doctor ever. So hopefully they're fairly healthy, and basically any monthly premiums you're just pissing away anyway, because you're not going to go to the doctor. And if you do, you'll still have the high deductible plan, and you can start building up an HSA at that point. Would I say that it's a requirement to max it out? Not with all the other stuff that this person has going on, especially those credit cards. Maybe your first year of employment, you don't really know how the HSA works because you didn't listen to the episode with Cuck. But, once you get more comfortable with that down the road, I think that's something that you could look at putting more money into and getting more comfortable with the investment part, or the investment side that is available in an HSA. That's kind of how I would look at that portion of it. As far as life insurance, disability insurance, you have negative net worth anyway, so who gives a fuck? At least as far as life insurance goes, you'll probably have some form, at least through work, that's free. Since you're making $60K a year, you'll probably have $60K for free. That'll be enough for your family to bury you, as morbid as that sounds. So, I wouldn't be too awfully worried about that at this point, personally.
Okay. This is kind of a curveball, but would you be thinking at all about, I know Cuck back in one of the episodes we did talked about something where HSA funds become available as they are funded, whereas with an FSA or even a limited purpose FSA, funds are available right away, even if the account is not entirely funded. Does it not matter when we're talking about dollars that are relatively small at this point, or is there a quote unquote hack embedded in there that pretty much says, like, hey, if you can, even if it's just a limited purpose FSA, if you have an HSA, fund that thing because those dollars are immediately available to you. And the reason I bring this up is you look at this person's profile and it's like, okay, at least initially, they have no savings, so that's kind of dangerous on a high deductible plan if you don't have all the money ready to go, even if you are generally very healthy if shit hits the fan. And also, they're already carrying a credit card balance with an interest rate at 20%. Would you, if you're them, look at any sort of quote-unquote hack like that of looking at an FSA instead of an HSA just so that the money's available sooner in an emergency, or are we just splitting hairs at this point?
In that situation, what I would do is I would put the money into the HSA still. I would probably do what we discussed with the credit card. Find me a 0% credit card, slap the balance of this medical bill onto a 0% credit card, and then, continue to pay it off. And what you can do is, as your HSA contributions are coming in, you can take them right back out and continue to pay off that medical bill. Also, there may be some type of 0% financing you can get for the medical bill. You call the billing people and sometimes they're willing to negotiate a little bit to get that bill down, or maybe you won't even have to pay it all at once and they'll be like, okay, we'll give you 0% for if you can pay this amount over the next 12 months or whatever. And you can just do that and then continue to reimburse that payment from your HSA as that amount goes in monthly. That's probably what I would do. Okay. But it's hard to say necessarily being in that situation, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, so non-starter on the FSA hack there. So far, if we had to recap financial profile 1, we're saying 6% pre-tax, get the match. Try to get rid of the current vehicle and cut that loan down if you can, potentially make a little bit of money on the sale. Split that half and half-ish between the credit card at 20% and building up an emergency fund because we're starting from scratch. Throw a little bit in the HSA as you can, but not necessarily max it out at this particular stage. And what am I missing? Where are we at after that?
Yeah, I think that's it. Don't worry about the insurance piece of it too much. I wouldn't. I know that this is probably the only podcast you're ever going to hear that advice on, I would say, but I would not worry too much about the life insurance piece of it. The disability insurance piece is not huge. You'll probably have something through work that helps somewhat. And yeah, it would just kind of be at that point plugging away, and once you get your balances where you want them, deciding whether you want to pay off debt or whether you want to invest the money. The $50K of student loan debt seems, pretty reasonably low. And, I think that could just be paid off over time. I don't think that a person should stress too much about that. It's more of that truck loan and the credit card that I would worry about.
Okay, very good. All right, that's financial profile number 1. All right, so financial profile number 2. This person is late 20s. It's just an individual. This person is divorced, but they have 2 kids. They are only earning $45,000 a year, W-2 income from their job. However, they are getting a total of about $860 a month in child support, which comes out to a little over $10,000 a year. They cashed out of their retirement plans previously, so they have no retirement savings currently to speak of. They have about $500 in their savings account. Their vehicle is over 10 years old and probably will need to be replaced in the next couple of years. They're currently living paycheck to paycheck as far as their expenses go. and they have $3,000 on credit cards, but because of some missed payments and penalties, the rate is all the way up to 29%. What should they be thinking about?
Well, first thing, just looking at these numbers, without having all of the specifics of them, it seems to me, looking at it, that they probably have a spending problem. They're bringing in $860 a month that I believe child support's tax-free. One of them is. No tax or legal advice here. Either alimony or child support is tax-free. And then, $4,000 a month of income from their job that, obviously that's a gross amount, and there is stuff taken from your paycheck. More than likely, in this scenario, you're probably going to get a huge refund at tax time, I guess, with two dependents. But, so that would be the first thing I would tell them, would be to look at your monthly spending and see if there's anything you can cut back. I'm sure the kids are not cheap, but maybe they're, right now, being paycheck to paycheck, every dollar counts. You need to be making sure that you are spending them efficiently, and not, on frivolous things or things that aren't necessarily needed. The next obvious big thing is the $3,000 that's on credit cards at 29%. You need to get that paid off as soon as possible. With that low of amount, I wouldn't worry about transferring it. I won't necessarily say to take the $500 in savings and plow it on there instantly, because you need an emergency fund as well, since you're living paycheck to paycheck. But, I would think even paycheck to paycheck, hopefully they're making the minimum payment, can pay off that $3,000, fairly quickly, we'll say, and probably in this scenario, they're spending on that credit card at the same time. So maybe the first step would be to at least pay off what they're spending every month on that credit card, to where they're not increasing the balance. If they have to replace their vehicle in a couple years, then they're obviously going to want to try to increase this emergency fund. Retirement savings is, I hate to say this, it's not of huge importance to them right now. Saving a little bit just to start the process of saving. It doesn't mention any employer plan here, so maybe
they do not have one. There's no okay. Employer match yet.
And so maybe even, it wouldn't even have to be monthly, since you're living paycheck to paycheck. If you do get a big tax refund, then you can turn around and put $100 from that into a Roth IRA. You need to start doing something for yourself. I'm guessing that you're going to ask me a question about saving for the kids. A 529 plan, I would not worry about.
No, actually, I wasn't. And I was not going to say that. This actually would be a situation if I were, on the other end saying, hey, I would consider this or consider that. That would not be, believe it or not, something that I would be thinking about. Life insurance, very different. But 529 plans, when you got $3,000 on credit cards at 29% and essentially no money to speak of, is not a priority, in my opinion.
Yes, and I would agree in this situation that, well, I guess it would be a sticky situation, because if you're divorced, I don't know if you... It depends on if you trust your ex-spouse or not. You probably would want to have some life insurance to leave to your kids in hopes that they would do the right thing with the money, and actually let the kids have it. At least enough to, let's just say, pay for their college or something like that. I think that would give you good peace of mind, knowing that was taken care for them, if you were to pass away before they ended up in college, knowing that they do have another parent that, has some source of income and could support them. I don't think it would need to be a huge amount of life insurance, since you do have that other spouse that could support them. But personally, I would probably want to have some just to be like, okay, I'm leaving this to the kids just so I feel good like I've done what I needed to do. And then whatever happens with that money once I'm dead, there's nothing that I could do with it. I don't know. You may know more that money could go into a trust and not be released to the kids until they're 18. I don't know.
Yeah, there are options. There are options for that, but
that.
Like this person is probably not. I hate to say it, unless they're using one of those prepaid legal services, and even then, there's a very limited scope in terms of the engagement. They're probably not at a position financially where, it sucks, but like they probably can't afford the bill for the attorney to set something like that up in the first place. So it's one of those, something is better than nothing. It's quote unquote good enough, right? Done is better than perfect, or whatever it is that they say. And maybe that's a little bit short-sighted initially, but again, just given the situation, it's like, what are you going to do? Like, put your attorney bill on a credit card at 29%. I don't even think you can do that. You know what I'm saying? Like so yeah, I mean, there are other strategies and things you could do in a different position, but right now it's like this person is pretty much, okay, what can you do given the fact that you're essentially, I don't want to say in dire straits because it's not that bad, but like it's certainly not good,
Right, yeah, and I would think that most people would probably want to have some type of life insurance for their kids, and ultimately in this situation, when you're on this tight of a budget and you are paycheck to paycheck, the biggest thing that you need to look at is your expenses and your spending. Create a monthly budget. You can probably go back on your credit card if that's where you're spending all your money, and you can probably get it to give you a spreadsheet of the last 12 months of spending to see where your charges are going, because I know that I don't track mine that closely, quite frankly. I don't know where every dollar of mine's being spent. I know that a lot of it's probably on some dumb shit, but that I guess that gives me joy. But in this situation where your money is so tight, I would want to know where every single dollar is going. Did I go get a Starbucks coffee today? That sounds stupid, and some people say, you need to worry about making more money and not worry about the $3 cup of coffee that you're getting. In certain situations, that does make sense. How can I make more money as opposed to cutting money? But in this situation, I think that the divorced person needs to track that spending really closely, because when you're in this situation, a Starbucks coffee does make a difference. If you're getting 3 of those a week, which I probably can't even afford one, but I don't drink coffee. So, just really track that spending and try to cut back. Even $100 a month would be a pretty huge savings and something to add to your emergency fund every month.
I love the comparison to Starbucks just because it makes our premium subscription at $3 a month just a tremendous fucking value. I don't think you can get a pump of like vanilla at Starbucks or whatever for less than $3 a month. I mean, come on. But good stuff so far. I would agree with that. And I used to be one of those people that thought about, well, cut, cut your expenses and the whole thing with the coffees that you mentioned. And then you got to start somewhere. So I agree. Like right now for this person, that's where their focus probably needs to be. But over time, that is going to become a rounding error for most people. And you need to focus on other areas where you're going to have, the most bang for your buck, so to speak, right? Things like housing, transportation, food, like, grocery bills, dining out at extravagant places, things like that. Not so much you spent, whatever, $5 on a cup of coffee or something like that. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and outside of that, I don't think there's really anything else too alarming. I know the vehicle needs to be replaced, and that's just kind of another reason to make sure that you're not spending money frivolously, because it seems like you're probably going to have to replace that within a couple years. And honestly, in this situation, I would say the further out that you could extend it and the longer you could keep that vehicle, the better off that you'll be.
Okay. Give us a quick recap. And by the way, Dr. Google says that child support is tax-free, not tax advice. Anyway, recap for us, financial profile number 2. So step 1 is what?
Step 1 is to find a way to, to pay off those credit cards, which I guess part 2 of step 1 would be to review your expenses and really see where all of this money is being spent at, and if there's any way to cut those down. Okay. And then obviously if you're saving anything, I would pay off the credit card as soon as possible while making sure that any expenses that I put onto the credit card, I am able to pay off that month. Then after that, I would start to worry about my savings and building my emergency fund a little bit. Start looking into getting, a little bit of life insurance that will give you the warm and fuzzies to know that, if you were to pass, that your kids would get something from you, or in theory, they should get something from you. And then I guess after you're comfortable with those things, then it would be to move to starting some form of retirement savings for yourself, because you don't want to forget yourself in all of this. You don't need to worry about doing any type of investment for the kids. When they grow up, they can invest themselves. They can pay for their own college if they have to. But you need to start saving for yourself, as soon as possible, even if it's not much money and it seems like it's pointless, to have the account set up to see how it works. That goes a long way, because trust me, it's a lot easier to change a contribution from $100 a year to $500 a year than it is to go and finally set up a fucking account, because I'm too lazy to do that shit.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I know that's a touchy topic for people with the kids in college, but that's the truth. Yeah.
And then I would say, try to upkeep with the maintenance on your vehicle and see if you can't get maybe 5 years out of it instead of 2 more years, or even 4 more years. If you can double that and keep an auto loan away, or keep a large payment away from having a vehicle, then I think that would be pretty beneficial to trying to, we'll call it, beef up the balance sheet.
All right, very good. Okay, well, I had 3 financial profiles on here, but in the interest of time, I know if we keep going, this episode's probably going to be over an hour, and I know listeners probably have a relatively short attention span sometimes. I know I do when I listen to certain shows. Well, that's one of the first things I look for is, is this show over an hour? If it's under an hour, under 45 minutes, and I feel like I can knock it out pretty quick on 1.5 times, those are the ones I usually listen to first. So anyway, let's cut it there. I do have financial profile number 3. We can get into that next time, in addition to maybe another 1 or 2 profiles. We'll continue to mix in these shows over time. Let us know what you think. realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com. Feel free to email the show. Give us some feedback. Do you like the financial profile sections that we're doing? Do you think we should get more detailed? Again, we're trying to keep it fairly high level in an audio format instead of going line by line through a spreadsheet, because I think most people can follow that. And as long as, the information is directionally correct as opposed to precise and down to the penny, I think for most people, that's going to be the most helpful. So that's what we're doing as of now, but feel free to share your thoughts and feedback. Also, feel free to email your own personal financial profile if you'd like to, realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com. Any final thoughts before we wrap for today?
No, I don't think so. I'd say, keep investing, everyone, and enjoy the summer.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll have you back here really soon. This is Cashflow King with Cube Crusher on financial profiles in your 20s, episode number 48. We are going to make this, at least this one here, a general episode. But again, feel free to become a premium subscriber to the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. I will tell you that's one of my favorite emails to get. It says, woohoo, you have a new subscription, and we get to bring somebody else into the Real Talk Personal Finance community, sort of the inner circle, and share all the perks that we mentioned earlier today with you. So this is episode 48. We will see you in the next episode.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.